Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Dear guests, today, unfortunately, is the last day of our 18th IT conference. I hope you enjoy your time yesterday. So we are so grateful to Korea's Customs Service and the delegates for the lovely evening. And now, let me invite, we will have a keynote speech from the Secretary General, CITES, Secretariat, and Ms. Ivonne Higuero, who wasn't able to join us physically, unfortunately, and however, she sent us her pre-recorded speech. So Ms. Yvonne Higuero is an environmental economist with a career spanning 26 years in international organizations in the area of sustainable development. Yvonne has experience working at the global, regional, and national levels and engaging with stakeholders across the public and private sectors. So please look our video.
Secretary General of the World Customs Organization, to give a keynote address at the WCO IT conference. My sincere apologies for not being there with you this week. Unfortunately, I had prior commitments that made it difficult to travel to Baku. I am sure you have been enjoying the great Azerbaijani hospitality they are well known for, and which I am very sorry to have missed. Firstly, I will say a few words about the convention, known in its short form as CITES, for those who may not be familiar with what it does. It is a legally binding multilateral environmental agreement with 183 parties. Its main objective is to regulate international trade so that it does not threaten the survival of the flora and fauna species in the wild. CITES parties ensure, through their decisions and resolutions, that trade is sustainable, legal, and traceable. It may surprise you that of the 36,000 species regulated under CITES, 97% can be legally traded for commercial purposes. Something else that may surprise you is that CITES supports a multi-billion US dollar trade. For example, the trade in Queen Conch, an edible mollusk, is estimated at $60 million per year. Pythons, often used for leather, are a $1 billion a year industry. And big leaf mahogany is a $33 million a year business. CITES is implemented through the issuance and exchange of permits and certificates between exporting and importing countries. This is the backbone of the convention. CITES parties are currently issuing over 1 million permits per year worldwide. These permits document the legality and sustainability of the trade transaction. Each permit is issued by an appointed national CITES management authority, for example, a Ministry of Agriculture, Wildlife, or Fisheries, and each of these permits must be controlled by customs during export, re-export, or import. So why is CITES important for customs authorities? Customs has many important functions for the effective implementation of CITES, and these can be generally grouped into two types of roles. First, customs facilitate legitimate CITES trade and provide the management authorities with the actual quantities that are traded under its permits. This information is highly important to analyze trade trends and determine future sustainability measures. Secondly, customs, in controlling all exports, re-exports, and imports, assess the risk that a particular shipment may constitute illegal trade in a CITES-listed species. Thus, customs plays a significant role in detecting and addressing illegal trade. Now that countries have committed to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, it is important to highlight that the work of customs authorities directly contributes to the conservation of valuable natural resources and supports the sustainable development of countries. Customs authorities support the protection of endangered species and the livelihoods of the people that depend on these species, whilst at the same time making a significant contribution to the fight against illegal trade in wildlife. Illegal trade in wildlife is a global concern. It poses a serious risk to the conservation of wild species and undermines conservation efforts and the legal wildlife trade. This is reflected by resolutions, declarations, and statements adopted in many different forums. Some examples amongst many are the June 2014 Declaration on Illegal Wildlife Trade adopted by the Customs Cooperation Council, the first ever UN General Assembly resolution on tackling illicit trafficking in wildlife adopted in July 2015, the September 2017 UN General Assembly resolution on tackling illicit trafficking in wildlife, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals I already mentioned, specifically addressing tackling illegal trafficking in wildlife through specific targets under Goal 15. Illegal trade in wildlife is a very lucrative transnational crime often conducted by highly organized criminal groups. It is thought to be the fourth largest transborder crime, and the value of this crime is estimated at between 5 to 20 billion US dollars, and this even excludes marine and timber species. No one country, region, or agency can combat illegal trade in wildlife alone, and there is strong recognition of the need for increased collaboration and coordination to combat it. Customs and CITES authorities should do this by fully drawing upon the opportunities that modern information and communication technologies offer. It is clear that ICT and electronic permit exchange between CITES management authorities and customs can make a significant contribution for detecting illegal trade and facilitate legal trade in CITES listed species. I, as part of my vision as new Secretary General, wish for the Secretariat to assist parties to move more quickly towards the use of modern information and communication technologies to facilitate the implementation of the Convention. We are, therefore, focusing on three main areas. First, we have initiated our support to CITES management authorities to automate the permit process and to exchange electronic permits with customs. For example, CITES provides a standard for electronic CITES permits in an electronic format, which is based on the data model of the World Customs Organization. Together with the Automated System for Customs Data Program, or ASECUDA, of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, we have developed a low-cost and powerful off-the-shelf software solution for issuance, control, and exchange of CITES permits. We are currently working with UNCTAD on the next generation of this system, which will be cloud-based. This system will be virtually maintenance-free for parties and would enable all CITES management authorities to exchange electronic CITES permits directly with their national customs administrations. Second, as an important first step, we are engaging in pilot projects with a key group of CITES parties on cross-border exchange of electronic permits. It is expected that the first systems will move from trial to production mode later this year. The long-term objective is to achieve end-to-end control in the CITES supply chain, leveraging on the international legal framework that CITES provides and the power of modern information and communication technology. And third, we are also looking into further opportunities that new technologies may provide. We are, for example, working with researchers to evaluate the potential of blockchain technology for secure and trusted exchange of CITES permits. At the upcoming 18th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to CITES, we will organize a side event in which management authorities from Southeast Asian countries will share ideas for cross-border exchange of CITES permits using blockchain technology and executable contracts. As more parties gain access to electronic permit systems, the future is bright in terms of our collaboration with customs authorities. We aim to implement or strengthen the electronic risk management systems used in the border control process to improve control of CITES trade. In this regard, a joint workshop between national customs administrations, CITES management authorities, the WCO, and other international organizations was held in Gibraltar in 2018. The objective was to assess current best practices in using risk management for control of CITES trade. And as an outcome, the CITES Standing Committee proposed a set of important activities to strengthen collaboration between management authorities and customs for CITES risk management in the customs clearance process. This includes the organization of an international workshop on customs procedures for improved control of trade in wildlife, jointly with WCO and National Customs Administrations. It also includes working with WCO and other relevant partners on electronic information exchange and the implementation of efficient risk-based procedures. We are eagerly looking forward to strengthening further our collaboration with customs administrations and the WCO. This will assist parties to take advantage of the potential of modern information and communication technologies for safer and more sustainable trade in CITES listed species. I close by exhorting you to work together with us, not only on the important mission to combat illegal trade in wildlife, but also to protect the important cultural and biological value that wildlife has in your countries and its role to provide sustainable income for your people. Thank you, and my best wishes for a successful conclusion of the conference.
It was Ms. Higuero's video address, and now let me invite Mr. Timothy Norton, Global Market Director, Ports and Borders, Smiths Detection, to deliver his keynote speech. Mr. Timothy Norton has over 30 years of experience in product management, product and market development, as well as innovation development, beginning in the fast-paced motorized leisure products industry and involving into the security operations industry. Please, your applause.
Good morning. So I'd like to start out by saying thank you for such an absolute wonderful event. I'd like to thank the Azerbaijan Customs Organization for helping arrange this and leading this. This was a fabulous venue. As always, whenever I'm able to speak in front of everybody, I love to thank the WCO because I know how hard they work behind the scenes to make this a successful event. I'd like to also thank all of you for making your way to Azerbaijan to attend this event. So far this week, there's been great engagement, a lot of great dialogue. I've had wonderful conversations. We've attended a lot of keynotes, tech talks, roundtables. It's been absolutely fabulous, and I think that this has just raised the bar for the next event. And I'm sure Ludwig is just dying to tell us where that's going to be when he gets a chance to speak later on. So we're waiting with that with bated breath, Ludwig, if you're in here someplace. So I'd like to start out. I'm going to show a short video before I go into my presentation. But the very first thing I want to understand, after last night's event, how many of us exercised this morning? How many of us? Not a lot. That kind of kills my next part because I was going to say, how many of you that raised your hand didn't really exercise? Okay, good. Yeah, that's a great start. I'm glad I'm not the only one. So, fabulous night last night. I think when we were at the previous event, the music and dancing was fabulous, and then last night just took it up a whole nother level. So, again, thank you very much, Azerbaijan. This is absolutely on my list of places to visit again. So, without further ado, I'd like to show us a short video, and then I'll come back and share some content around it. Thank you.
Every year, more and more people and goods are on the move, passing through customs, crossing borders, and moving around cities. But this global mobility presents a growing number of challenges, including changing security threats and the smuggling of goods and illicit items. That's why we built Courses, an advanced security management system that brings all your intelligence onto a single secure decision-making platform. Courses enables 100% risk-based screening to uncover threats by capturing intelligence from a range of sources and uses algorithms tailored to your operation to provide a risk assessment of every case, so operators can make informed decisions about whether additional screening is needed. Every decision is fed back into Courses, making it smarter. Alongside improved security, Courses helps to uncover trends and intelligently allocate resources, all of which helps you run your operation more efficiently. Developed on the backbone of Microsoft Azure, You can choose whether you operate courses in the cloud or on your premises, allowing you to monitor and control your entire operation from a central location and free upfront line staff to complete their roles more effectively. Courses features advanced encryption architecture, so you can have complete confidence that your data is being stored securely. Whether your operation is large, growing, or changing shape, Courses will scale to suit your need. Tomorrow's security management system is here today. Discover Smiths Detection's Courses now.
So, I wanted to show the Courses video mainly to start to set the tone of what I'm going to spend the next 12 or 13 minutes talking about. So, where I want to go with this part of the discussion is not about selling you on courses. That's not where I was going to go with this morning. Where I wanted to take my part of the morning's activities and be more focused on thought leadership around what we learned this week. So, key to this is that first I need to move my slides, but more importantly, 2 years ago, about 580 kilometers to the west of here, I stood in front of you and I announced the release of Courses as a product when we were in Tbilisi. And at this time, it was the first SaaS application dedicated to the security operations industry, which was quite new, very new. Setting that thought aside, where I wanted to go with this was I wanted to talk about you for a minute, because the work that we invested leading up to the release of that product was where the real interest lies and what ties what I'm about to tell you to today and what we learned this week. In order to develop Courses, we had to get the voice of the customer. So the very first thing that we did after we were approved the funding to do so, we spent about 15 months traveling the world to talk to you. Customer journey mapping workshops, and I talk about this all the time, and people often ask me, why do you always go back to this topic? And I do so because it was really key to understand what's the real problem to solve in the industry today. We asked, we spent a lot of time, we drew a lot of pictures, and what you told us were 3 imperatives that we knew that you could not live without in your future plans in a security operations space. The first one was speed. Everybody wants to do something faster. Everybody wants to do their remit faster. They want to execute more. They want to process this more. They want to touch these more. And they want to do it at pace with the growth of our global supply chain and influences such as the rapid growth of e-commerce. Number 2, not only did you say you wanted to do things faster, you wanted to do them with more effectivity. So, Tim, I want to do things really fast, and I want to know more, and I want to be more precise at the same time. So I'm not willing to give up effectivity for speed. But the third one, and this is why I wanted to bring this slide back up from 2 years ago, it's because collaboration. We asked, and you said, we will need a platform to collaborate in the future, but we're not collaborating today, so don't tell us when we have to be ready to collaborate. Just prepare the next level of technology that's going to be released to us to in fact drive collaboration. Fast forward to today, collaboration still isn't happening and at the rate that it will need to for you to get the effectiveness out of the next level of tech. But we're now at least having these conversations, and the interesting thing from 2 years ago to this week, I heard a lot more about collaboration, a lot more about the need to share data. It's not happening yet, but the parties have come a lot closer together in terms of what is it that we're going to need to collaborate on in order to have that increase in effectivity, which will also help us in the speed for which we want to get our work done. Another bit of a historical view of the industry. We know the past 500 years ago, trade routes were established. Ships were put in water, goods were put in ships, they were put in trains, and this was the start of our global supply chain. In the last 50 years, we saw the introduction of things like electronic information delivery, fax machines, email came about, X-ray devices, and then we started to see the use of things like video cameras and other elements that were driving data to help the movement of goods and services across the globe. So when you think about this, 500 years ago we established roots in governance. 50 years ago we started to introduce tech into the space, and then we look at the next 5 years, not the next 50 years, not the next 500 years, but the next 5 years. The radical change driven by the introduction of tech into the working environment of the Customs Administration will in fact change radically from now out to 5 years from now. And we're already starting to see it. The previous keynote on video, think about the number of key tech elements that she had embedded in her speech. Blockchain, cloud, AI. And that's pretty much what the conversations have been based around all week. The next 5 years, which is what's key about this slide that I have in front of you, it's just 5 years, and maybe it might only be 3 years. Think about the technology that we've been focusing on this week. And it's not just about what I'm talking about, what our company is doing, but what all of you are considering, all of our fellow partners and industry members have been talking about this week. Blockchain, interoperability, and that's a big one, and it's a big one this week because before you all arrived, we had 2 days of a working meeting around the UFF file format, which is a fabulous device to start the collaboration journey, and we thank the WCO for supporting us as industry members to be able to develop that. Cloud computing, AI and machine learning, virtual reality, cybersecurity, all of those elements, they're beyond buzzwords, but they are the technical bricks, the foundation of how your business will change as you look downstream across the next 5 years. I've got 3 points that I want to talk about that I think are important, that are going to be of consideration, that are going to help you in that collaborative imperative, along with speed and the effectiveness of how you'll work going forward. And the first one is about dynamic-based machine learning models. And that sounds like a lot of tech words connected together, but what it means is this. You will have AI and machine learning embedded into your workflows in the future. It'll happen from us and from others. It will happen. How dynamic modeling can affect your work going forward is this. Imagine if your air cargo facility had a machine learning model and it was gathering data every day and learning from that data and helping you drive a more informed outcome. Imagine if your colleagues, interagency colleagues in the cargo space had a similar machine learning model that was gathering data every day, helping you make decisions and collecting that intelligence and building the intelligence level of that model. Now, you as a customs administrator could have a master model, a super model, that extracts the intelligence from those two models at pace, every case, every container, every target that gets processed through there, and builds its intelligence above that. And the important element about what I've just said, no part of that required the physical transfer of data. So there is a way, in fact, interagencies or countries to countries in the future will be able to use this concept to be able to build intelligence separately, blend their intelligence together, and both benefit without physically moving the data from one geographical location to another. This is one of the many tools using the current and the future technology to be able to drive intelligence, drive collaboration, and drive the pace and speed for which we learn about elements such as anomalies in containers or the types of goods that are coming into a country via a passenger's bag, those kind of things. That has to happen. It has to happen quickly. We know we can't drive you to when you will collaborate physically and trade images or trade data, but we wanted to be able to utilize today's and tomorrow's technology to try to build ways to allow you to collaborate more effectively. Let's talk about AI and AI as a service. Again, this concept comes from the medical industry. Imagine now you go in and you get a medical x-ray. Chances are it's not going to be read at the physical location where the x-ray was taken. Chances are your medical information is being transferred over to somebody else who is an expert on that particular element that they're going to be looking at in your x-ray. Change that out and look at security operations and look at the x-ray images and look at the data that are coming from as a result of your security operations output. Imagine that one country can upload image information into an AI service. The AI service can be trained to read the specific anomalies and render a decision to the receiving customs administration before the targets even arrive. What this would allow you to do, as with the previous slide, you get to use some of your intelligence, you get to feed it into an algorithmic approach. It learns from that information, renders some advice that you all can use, all without physically exchanging the data, and at pace. So imagine I used this yesterday, if you saw the plenary session, and I'm going to try not to repeat too much of it, but imagine this scenario where one airport, an outbound airport, has all the bags inspected before they get onto the plane. The plane takes off. While the plane is en route, the image files of all those bags are read. AI comes out and says, of those 275 bags on that flight, 12 of them might have fruit in them. So the receiving customs administration now gets to welcome you into their respective country, and those 260 some odd travelers are welcomed down the green lane to go on to their next flight, and those 12 that might have the opportunity to have fruit inside their check bag, they're invited to do a secondary inspection. Think of what this is able to do in terms of enabling that customs administration. We're now processing those passengers faster so they get on to their next destination quicker with less security protocol applied to them, number one, but they're no less safe. Number two, we have a higher level of effectiveness in terms of understanding what's in those bags, knowing that we know there wasn't an explosive device to get those bags onto the plane, but what else is in those bags that the inbound customs administration would like to know about? And number three, all this data is fed back into the machine learning, and now these upstream and downstream patterns can be built. So now perhaps we can move the challenge out. And one of my colleagues yesterday from the plenary session had mentioned, let's move the security operations back further away from the inspection point. This type of technology, the use of the technology that we've been talking about all week, will enable this capability. And number three, this topic is really important to me, and this is what's probably most important for all of you in here. Of all the tech that we've discussed, of all the great capability that the industry is presenting back to you in terms of what we really think we could do to help your everyday mission, all of this will not happen unless you are ready to transform your business. This is not about digital transformation. That's just one subset of it. This is about business transformation. And what I've seen so far, all the customs administrations that I've interviewed and worked with and discussed and shared thoughts about the tech with, business transformation is going to be the key to your success. And what does that mean? Cloud policy. Number one, you will likely use cloud in your future. I'm not here to tell you to fear it or not. You will develop your own cloud policy, but chances are data is going to be the currency of your future. Large amounts of data are going to be required to drive intelligent decision making. Large amounts of data require a great amount of computing processing. And all of that is going to come with the next generation of cloud or on-prem or edge computing. You will have to embrace that. Develop a cloud policy. Develop what your policy is going to be as you grow with this tech forward. Otherwise, the tech's not going to do you any good at all. Number two, develop an absolute starting point for your data security plan. Don't go into this blind. And I know many of you have already had these discussions internally, and you've shared them with folks like me when we talk to you about tech. But if you don't have a solid data security plan and you don't have a sound cloud policy, you're going to limit yourself in terms of what tech you could actually use that could absolutely enable your future ConOps. Number 3, ConOps workflows. Workflows are a thing. How to tie a series of technology bricks together to do something with a target from here and get it here, whether that's a shipping container, whether that's an air cargo parcel, whether that's a passenger arriving into your airport. You will be developing workflows that will be the map for how your teams and how your respective administrations will use that tech. It is the guidebook. They will change. They will be dynamic, but you will need those. And when will you need those? Well, like I said 3 slides ago, during the next 5 years, you're going to learn cloud policy, you're going to learn data security policy, you're going to learn workflow development, and finally, the 4th one, why do we have to do this? Because we want to drive value to our respective customers. You as customs administrations have customers that you need to serve. We have customers as industry to serve you. This is about driving value. This is about building efficiency. This is about utilizing your processes and your resources at a higher level of effectivity than what's happening today. The view of the future, this connected landscape. We've heard representatives from the EU, we've heard representatives from other organizations talk about the securing of the future of a secure supply chain. It's key. And our future in this connected customs environment, within the next 5 years, we will see image transformation and transferring from one customs administration to another. We'll see interagencies joined up with a single source of truth, whether that's passenger inbound, whether that's air cargo inbound, or whether that's traditional container movement. It will all come together in a single domain where you can gather this information once and harvest it over a long period of time to get more use out of it, to drive what? Your speed of pace of which you're going to process these targets. Number 2, the effectivity. And it is going to enable a great level of collaboration, which we know that the level for which that's happening today. So to wrap this up, what I've been advising customers across the globe, industry is going to drive 100% inspection of your parcels, your containers, your passengers, and you're going to do so with data. Number 1. Number 2, you're going to use an asset-light approach, because what's going to happen, data and data processing and the facilitation of this is going to come on the backbone of software and services. You will use your hardware, you will still use hardware, you will still procure hardware, but you will use it in a different way as the hardware begins to pivot its place in this environment. You're going to optimize your current and your future assets, and you're going to focus more on enabling and a result, as opposed to really trying to build a system of systems, if you will. You're going to leverage the power of data. You're going to leverage the power of that data that you have. And finally, all of these elements that are on the screen in front of you are really put in place and really going to help you do one thing and one thing right. And this is your words back to me. Tim, we want to process more targets with fewer resources at a higher level of effectivity. This is really the mission. We want to enable a more informed outcome. The tech today, remember, it's just tech. If you don't have a business transformation plan, if you don't have a roadmap on how you're going to onboard this tech and build it into your working environment, it will just be tech. Enjoy the rest of your day. It's been a great pleasure to be able to speak in front of you, and I thank the government of Azerbaijan, Customs Administration, the WCO. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Norton, for your speech. And before inviting our inspirational speaker, Mr. Ilham Zakiyev, twice Paralympic champion, to the stage to deliver his keynote speech, I invite all of you to watch a small inspirational video about his life story after he will come to the stage and deliver his keynote speech. Now, please, your attention to the screen.
A bullet stole my eyesight. It nearly stole my life. I woke to the sound of my mother's voice. Her love gave me the energy within to fight again. Though I can't see her, I feel her watching, driving me on to be the best I can be.
So, Mr. Ilham Zakiyev is a 7 times European champion and twice world champion. He won a gold medal at the Athens and Beijing Paralympics and a bronze medal at the London Paralympics. He is winner of the Baku First European Games and vice president of the National Paralympic Committee. He is also a veteran of the Karabakh War. Please, Mr. Ilham Zakiyev, your applause.
Çox hörmətli xanımlar və cənablar, əziz tədbir iştirakçıları. İlk əvvəl mən hamınızı salamlamaq istəyirəm, salamlayıram. Və qısa olaraq mən öz həyatımdan sizə bir məlumat vermək istəyərdim. Zakiyev İlham Zakiyev mart ayının 3-də 1980-ci ildə Azərbaycanın Sumqayıt şəhərində dünyaya göz açmışam. Uşaqlıqdan idmana həvəsim olub, idmanla məşğul olmuşam. Qısa müddətdə Respublika daxili uğurlarım da olub. 98-ci ildə isə yaşım tamam oldu və həqiqi hərbi xidmətə çağırıldım. Və idmançı olduğumdan seçilirdim öz yaşıtlarımdan. Məni ordumuzun xüsusi təyinatlarına seçdilər və ensali hərbi hissədə hərbi qulluğumu başladım. 99-cu ildə isə Qarabağda yerləşən Füzuli rayonunda döyüş tapşırığını yerinə yetirən zaman düşmən snayperinin gülləsinə tuş gəldim. Güllə sol gicgahımdan daxil olub sağ gicgahımdan çıxdı. 5 gün koma vəziyyətində qaldım. Həkimlər hətta valideynlərimə bildirdilər ki, hazırlaşın, öləcək, sağ qalmayacaq. Lakin 5 gün sonra mən anamın səsinə komadan ayıldım. Lakin ayılanda mən anamı görə bilmədim. Bu yaralanma nəticəsində mən görmə qabiliyyətimi tamam itirdim və evimizə 1-ci qrup Qarabağ müharibəsi 50 kimi döndüm. Yəni, Azərbaycanda uzun müddət mən reabilitasiya keçdim. Həkimlər məni görməmi qaytara bilməsələr də Azərbaycanda olan idmançılar olan diqqət qayğı mən Paralimpiya hərəkatına qoşuldum 2002-ci ildən və Azərbaycandan ilk paralimpiyaçı oldum. Afinada Azərbaycanı judodan təmsil edən çox məsuliyyətli bir yarış idi. 2004-cü ildə mən ilk dəfə Azərbaycanı təmsil edim judo idman növündən və qədim Ellada torpağında Azərbaycanın himni sədaları altında bayrağımız ucalanda mən qələbəmin şərəfinə mən özümün dünyanın ən xoşbəxt insanı hiss edirdim. Növbəti Paralimpiya oyunlarında Pekində mən titulumu qorudum. 2-ci dəfə Paralimpiya çempionu oldum. Londonda 1-ci medal qazandım. Bununla bərabər 7 dəfə Avropa çempionu olmuşam, 2 dəfə də dünya çempionu olmuşam bu vəziyyətdə. Və bu qazandığım uğurlara görə mənə dövlət tərəfindən, cənab prezident tərəfindən dövlət mükafatları, fəxri adlar, orden və medallarla təltif olunmuşam. Azərbaycanda olan inkişaf tək idman sahəsində deyil, bütün iqtisadi və bütün sahələrdə Azərbaycanda inkişaf göz qabağındadır. Onun bariz nümunəsi də ki, bugün bu tədbirin Azərbaycanda Bakıda keçirilməsidir. Mənim Azərbaycana qulluğum hərbidə yarımçıq qalsa da az öncə qeyd elədiyim səbəbdən yaralandım. Bugün mən Azərbaycana qulluğu idman arenalarında davam edirəm və öz işimlə hər dəfə fəxr edirəm. Azərbaycanın bayrağı qalxanda, himni səsləndə. Və inşallah növbəti hədəfimiz Tokyoda Azərbaycanı 2020-ci ildə layiqincə təmsil eləmək. Hamımıza uğurlar arzulayıram. Çox sağ olun, diqqətinizə görə.
We are proud of you, Mr. Zakiyev. Thank you for your speech. And now let me introduce our fourth session. Objective of this session is to explore how technology can support the enforcement community in the fight against illegal trade. The session will be moderated by Mr. Mazen Abu Alghanam, Business Development Manager, Webb Fontaine Group. In Webb Fontaine Group, Mr. Mazen Abu Alghanam is responsible for promoting the development of countries and integration in the single window for foreign trade and other development speech, in addition to undertaking technological functional analysis of identifying new markets, managing local consultants and assist in the setting up of new projects.
Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody has a good night of sleep after the wonderful night and magnificent dinner and music and performances that we had yesterday. First of all, allow me to thank Azerbaijan government and people for their great hospitality and for the wonderful organization of the WCO IT and TI conference. Also would like to thank the WCO staff for their efforts, continuous efforts that they put into all their events, and they are producing a wonderful and marvelous events as usual. As we know, the title of this session is Innovative Solutions for Safer and More Sustainable Trade, but the focus will be directed to the trade and its implications, in both security and environmental and economical aspects of it for environmental and wildlife trade. So, as we saw from Ms. Ivonne Higuero video, that volume and value of illicit trade and has a great impact on both security, economy, and environmental aspects. Millions of specimens from all species are killed each year for profit estimated between 91 to 250 million US dollars per year. This makes it the fourth largest trading and trafficking, more than human trafficking, drug trafficking, counterfeiting. Environmental crime, as you know, is like many forms of illicit trade, is considered as a low risk and high income and high reward business. So the combination of its low risk and the low detection and the limit numbers of arrests invites criminal and actually makes an invitation for an open door for new entrepreneurs to its illegal market. So on the other hand, trafficking of cultural objects has gained the attention of senior policymakers and law enforcement officers around the world, particularly due to its links with money laundering, terrorist financing. Growing political awareness of this illicit trade has led to the adoption of the United Nations Security Council of specific resolutions addressing this problem. Similarly, the high volumes and increasingly sophisticated nature of trade in counterfeit and pirated goods pose serious concerns. The impact of counterfeiting and piracy on the global economy and market is becoming more severe every year. The role of customs in combating counterfeiting is very important to preventing unfair competition and guarantee equal market access to its actors. So we heard in the past few days in the conference and in many keynote speeches and in many one-to-one meetings and during our tour into the various booths in the exhibition, we heard some keywords about collaboration, risk management, technology, and digital transformation, as we just heard now. And it will be more based on initiatives and cooperation. Without further delay, I would like to introduce our first member of the panel, Mr. Dingani Banda. Mr. Dingani Banda, he's a business strategist and an information technology expert. He has attained 22 years experience in the public and private sectors, having started his career with international auditing and consultancy firm. He has since served 15 years of his career in tax administration as assistant commissioner, responsible for data management and business intelligence. Mr. Dingani was appointed to serve as commissioner for the newly established Modernization and Corporate Strategy Division for the Zambia Revenue Authority, which is, among others, responsible for facilitating and transforming reforms for tax administration in Zambia. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Banda.
Okay, fine, thanks. Okay. The Deputy Chairman, State Customs Committee of Azerbaijan, WCO officials who are present, fellow participants in the conference, both from the private sector and the public sector, I say good morning to you all. I join many others in expressing appreciation to the government of Azerbaijan for the wonderful hospitality that's been accorded to us. Thank you. I'll start my presentation by outlining our experience as Zambia in the aspect of usage of innovative solutions for safer and more sustainable trade. So I'll have an outline. Okay. The technology seems to be okay. It's coming on. So in terms of background, I'll first of all give a context of Zambia, where we are. As you know, we are in the central part of Africa. It's a country of about 752,000 square kilometers. Most importantly, as you can see, surrounded by 8 countries as our neighbors. And these are countries that are quite well endowed with natural resources in terms of fauna and flora, I think, which is one of the key aspects for this topic. In terms of natural resources, as outlined there, the minerals there, and the population is 16.4 million. In terms of environmental agreements, we are party to climate change agreements. We are party to agreements relating to biodiversity. We are party to agreements relating to endangered species. Relating to this topic, we would like to bring to attention the risk, I think, which has already been highlighted by the Secretary General for CITES. This relates to loss of biodiversity through, among others, serious poaching of animals and also deforestation. As you can see, in terms of also intellectual property rights, there is a right legal framework that supports the enactment of intellectual property. There is an office that is dedicated for enforcement of that function. And also Zambia is a member of, among others, the World Intellectual Property Organization and also the Africa Regional Intellectual Property Organization. Now, in terms of focusing on the regulatory environment that assists us to innovate, particularly with respect to matters of endangered species, is that we started the automation of our systems using the SCUDA from way back in 1998. We moved to a SCUDA++. Now we are in a SCUDA world. And we've also started, among others, the single window implementation and the use of scanners. We also have a facility for pre-clearance, meaning that the goods can be pre-cleared before physical arrival at the border through submissions to customs. We also have risk management. I think that's one of the key issues that has come out quite strongly in this conference. The application of risk management, we've been using it within customs environment, but we've also extended it to other government agencies, starting with the Zambia compulsory standard, who we've now connected to the SCUDA system, so that they also capture their risk profiles on the SCUDA system. As a declaration is made to customs, the risk parameters also for the compulsory standards are automatically triggered and able to be applied. And in some instances where goods need to be inspected jointly, that facility is able to provide for joint inspection of the goods. Then we have coordinated border management, where we have collaboration with other government agencies, particularly those relating to plant quarantine and phytosanitary services, those relating to wildlife services, and those relating to the police and patents and company registration. So you can see the aspect of coordination comes in quite key, but like I think cited earlier on, there are still challenges relating to efficient exchange of data, which I'll expand on as I proceed. Also, we have an aspect of specialized trained staff relating to matters of IPR that has been done. And also, I must emphasize that Zambia has been very active in the international platform through liaisons, among others, by participating in WCO-initiated activities relating to protection of the endangered species. So we've been active. We participated in the project in Ama. We've also participated as a member of RIRO, that's Regional Intelligence Liaison Office. We've also been active in the Customs Enforcement Network. We've also been active in other WCO-connected activities, such as Operations Presido, and also we are planning to participate in the Thunderbolt operation, and also implementation of the TWIX Wildlife Initiative in the SADC region. Now, I would like to bring a perspective now in terms of how does the use of technology come in the protection of fauna and flora as outlined in this topic. So you can see that we've invested in non-intrusive equipment. These are scanners. We procured about 8 scanners. That's the year 2009. We have also got officers who have been trained in image analysis. And also we are now planning to procure baggage scanners for deployment at the borders. So this is the principal technology right now used for non-intrusive inspection. And I'll particularly zero in on an incident, an actual practical incident that happened at one of our borders. This border is called Kazungula. One interesting feature about this border is that it's a place where 4 countries in Africa meet at almost one border. So we have at the same border Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia. And there's a Zambezi River across. So you can see that it provides the right environment for enforcement activities, a right environment for coordination among customs agencies, a right environment for coordination even within the countries among the respective government agencies. So this incident related to a scanned image, I hope we are able to see. As you can see there, there's something that has been circled, which with ordinary eyes, one was not able to detect. So the officer scanned the truck, the goods were declared correctly, but there was a need for risk-based intervention, and the truck has to be passed through a scanner. And as you can see there was something suspicious, which an ordinary human eye could not detect, but only the scanner could detect. The officers decided to do a physical inspection, and this is what was found. Those are tusks from 2 elephants. So you can see that technology was in this case deployed to address an actual situation which ordinarily could not have been detected. So that's one just example. using the non-intrusive equipment, but in terms of the future plans, I think the Secretary General for CITES mentioned the key issues that we need to be focusing on going forward. The issue of data exchange is very key. Right now, we have situations where data is only submitted to one, probably government agency, they keep it. It has to be submitted separately to customs. And even when it's submitted to customs, customs has to keep it. When one crosses the border, they have to resubmit the same data to other customs administration. So you can see that there's a repetitive process that is involved in there. So as Zambia, we intend to embark on data exchange. We've already started initiatives with our neighboring countries. We're talking with Zimbabwe, Botswana, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Tanzania. So you can see that these are some of the initiatives that we really need to focus on exchange of data among the countries. We're also focusing on risk management. We are looking at risk management away from just a primary focus on one government institution, which is customs. We are looking at coordinated risk management, preferably through the use of the single window platform. Like I earlier indicated, that right now we have the institution responsible for compulsory standards. Their risk management aspect is integrated on the ASCUDA platform. We would like to add other government agencies. For example, those responsible for plant quarantine, those responsible for wildlife, and so forth, so that we're able to share the peculiar issues that we need to look at in terms of efficient risk management. And you understand that if it comes to matters of wildlife, the best experts are the institution responsible for wildlife, who have more updated intelligence on that particular aspect. We're also looking at the interface of ASCUDA with the scanners. I think it's been talked about here. The need for us to harvest data from multiple sources, but at the end of the day, be able to analyze this data from the appropriate points of interventions in the processing cycle. We're also looking at detection of counterfeit. We're looking at implementation of technologies that will assist with the detection of counterfeit. And also looking at aspects relating to capacity building, continuous engagement with other international stakeholders, involvement in other WCO capacity building operations, as earlier indicated. We think this will help us further build our momentum to address the risk in terms of using innovative solutions for safer and sustainable trade. So that's the presentation. I leave you with the mighty Victoria Falls out there, which also needs to be protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banda. As we noticed from Mr. Banda's presentation, we just heard about or learned about Zambia's experience and the action and initiatives they are adopting and their future challenges and plans to fight illegal trade in wildlife, which mainly focusing on risk management, data exchange, use of technology, and capacity building and cooperation between various agencies, which is the key word that we've been hearing for the past couple of days in this conference. So to hear another perspective from another key person in our panel, we would like to invite Ms. Vrindaba Gohil. She's a customs officer at the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs of India and currently serving with the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, and holding the appointment of First Secretariat for Trade in the Embassy of India at Moscow. And she's also a customs attaché. She has worked in trade-related departments for the Government of India and has a rich experience in working with customs and logistics-related areas in the field of enforcement, as well as General Customs Administration at various levels in the past 17 years. As head of the trade wing in the Embassy of India in Moscow, her focus is in opening further avenues of increasing the bilateral trade FTA with the EU and the actualization of Green Corridor and CITES projects. So please join me with welcoming Ms. Gohil.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the government of the Republic of Azerbaijan, the State Customs Committee of Azerbaijan, the World Customs Organization, all the sponsors for having made this wonderful and remarkable event possible, and especially the World Customs Organization for inviting me to this wonderful city of Baku and this wonderful event. The past 2 days have been a great, enriching and learning experience for me. As a customs officer, over the nearly past 2 decades, I am witness to the evolution of the customs administration from a strict regulatory framework focusing on collection of customs revenue to that of a friendly trade facilitator, encouraging the businesses to work in a safe environment. And now I see the focus is more and more on sustainable development. This particular diagram on the screen, which I have culled out from a joint study conducted by UNEP and Interpol in 2016, depicts the nexus between illegal trade and the various organized crimes that take place. So you have various illegal trades in like mining, including conflict diamonds, illegal logging and deforestation, illegal dumping and trade in hazardous and toxic waste, smuggling of ozone-depleting substances, illegal fishing and trade, illegal charcoal production from timber sources, and illegal trade and poaching of wildlife and plants. And all these illegal trade ultimately leads to various illegal crimes like threat finance, taxation frauds, money laundering, forgery, involvement in organized crimes, and terrorism. As has been stated by the keynote speaker, the Secretary General of CITES, the World Wildlife Fund has, in its report, stated the gravity of the situation of the illegal trade the illegal trade in wildlife, reaching almost $19 billion US. So how do you counter these illegal trade and reach the goal of sustainable development? Thanks to artificial intelligence, the convergence of algorithmic advances, data proliferation, and tremendous increases in computing power and storage has propelled artificial intelligence from hype to reality. And with the AI, we can undergo processes like supervised learning, unsupervised learning, deep learning, name screening, alert monitoring, and investigation. So thanks to AI and various other technologies that we've seen across the past few days, like the Internet of Things and blockchain technology, the goal of attaining sustainable development is not so difficult. I'd like to share with the audience some of the interesting AI applications which can be used to counter environmental crimes. First of all, the environmental water crimes. The application like the Ocean Data Platform, it's an open source solution enabling comprehensive monitoring of ocean data. The robotic fish, it's an autonomous device to hunt down contamination in water, and it feeds this information back to the shore. The Fish Guard Pilot, it's an AI-powered drone providing information about protected marine areas and illegal fishing hotspots. In the field of natural resources and forests, you have the Earth Bank of Codes. It's an open, global, public, good digital platform that registers nature's assets. The Terra Amazon is a fantastic, the world's first rainforest surveillance system, which is established by the Brazilian National Institute for Space Research. The application, mobile phone application Vida Silvestre, it deals with wildlife species and their conservation. Coming to AI usage in the combating environmental wildlife crimes, you have the chimp face. It can identify illegal digital chimpanzee pet sales and potentially reduces instances of wildlife trafficking. The audio moth, the audio recognition application, which can identify animal calls, gunshots, chainsaws, and helps in wildlife conservation. And lastly, the spatial monitoring and reporting tool, SMART, which helps in monitoring populations of elephants, snow leopards, rhinos, and dolphins. These are some of the wonderful AI applications I thought I could share with you. most of them might not be new to you, but customs administrations across the board could undergo open innovations from these technologies and become smart and counter environmental wildlife crimes. Now, coming to the specific issue of countering of wildlife, illegal trade in wildlife flora and fauna, I'd like to share with this honorable and esteemed audience the experience of the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence of the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs of India. The Directorate of Revenue Intelligence is a leading apex enforcement and investigation agency of the CBIC in India, and one of its mandate, other than countering narcotics trade and commercial frauds, is to combat wildlife crimes. I'd like to share with you the experience of Operation Sesha. The word Sesha is originating from the region Seshachalam, which is located in the southern part of India, around the state of Andhra Pradesh, and it is a natural habitat of the endangered species of timber, which is popularly known as red sanders, also known as red gold. It's a very sought after species of timber, and therefore it has found its place in the Appendix 2 of the CITES. Because of the high smuggling out of this red sanders from India to Southeast Asian countries and China, the Operation Sesha was launched, and in 2014, the Indian Customs proposed this idea to the WCO Policy Commission to open this particular operation towards the international customs fraternity. About 18 administrations of the Asia-Pacific region joined hands in this successful operation to collectively combat smuggling of CITES-listed species of timber. And during this entire operation, about 400 metric tons of timber was seized. Now, I just forgot to mention that, to just give you an idea, that about 1 metric ton of red sanders in the international market would probably fetch about 40 lakhs to 1 crore rupees. So that is the quantum that we are thinking of, and that's why this operation was launched. This particular operation was conducted in 3 phases. In the pilot phase, 2 customs administration, India Customs and Hong Kong Customs were involved. And in the pilot phase itself, in about 12 cases, 251 metric tons of endangered species of wood was seized. In the preparation phase, Indian Customs seized 79.12 metric tons of red sanders. In the main phase, which lasted for 3 months from February to April 2015, 16 seizure notifications and 2 warning notifications were issued, and because of which different species of timber like ebony, agar wood, red sanders, Sri Lankan sandalwood, Siam rosewood, Burmese rosewood were seized, and a total of 120 metric tons and 7,600 cubic meters of timber was seized during this phase. Now, we've all been talking about collaboration and how increased collaboration can combat various illegal trades and lead to sustainable development. So during this operation, an interesting case study I'd like to share. The Indian Customs had shared with the Malaysian Customs a suspected consignment which was said to contain wire-braided rubber hydraulic hose, and which was on its route to Port Klang in Malaysia. So through the Regional Intelligence Liaison Office, the RILO AP, and through the network of the customs attachés, this information was passed on to Malaysian Customs, and a successful seizure was conducted by Malaysian Customs of 36 metric tons of red sanders. This is a case in point which can go ahead to prove that international collaboration and transnational cooperation can combat all kinds of crimes. Now, the countries which participated in this operation, those which did successful seizures were China, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Vietnam. So you can understand the success of this particular operation. The communication tool that was used for this operation was CENTCOM. It's a secure and web-based application which is used for sharing information, alerting suspicious consignment, monitoring the movement of shipment, and reporting seizures during the operational phase. So it was a closed user group of CENTCOM users. Nodal contact points were identified and coordination units were established. Some kind of a training was given to familiarize the application, and thereafter, just a small communication tool led to such fantastic results. So what can happen if we are going to use all these technologies that are available to us, that we have discussed over the past few days, one can just imagine. Now, what were the challenges in prevention? There are challenges. The smuggling of timber involves synchronized actions among multitudes of gangs operating along the transnational routes. And also, there is an inadequate legal and operational framework for real-time coordinated action among law enforcement agencies of the origin, transit, and destination countries. But I'm sure that with the new technologies that we have encountered over the past few days, some solutions can be worked out to counter these kind of challenges. And the way forward that we see is establishing and strengthening of the wildlife enforcement networks, creation of database of companies involved in smuggling of timber based in different countries, and sharing the same for more detection based on risk analysis. Exchange of seizure data. This has been repeatedly been said that data is the new oil, and all customs formations have data. So we need to discuss how and when to exchange this kind of data. Financial investigations can break the back of the wildlife crime perpetrators and busting of the syndicates. Here I'd like to announce that the Operation Shesha's global phase is going to be launched in the months of November and December of this year, and I welcome all the Eurasian region countries to take part in that this operation. Having said that about the timber species, the DRI, the Director of Revenue Intelligence, has also made some wildlife enforcement seizures in the cases of live birds, exotic live birds and animals, marine species, especially shark fins, shark bones, and prohibited ornamental fishes, turtles and tortoises, ivory, tiger, leopard skin and bones. So we need to join hands to save the environment. And again, the borders divide, customs connect, and combating frauds through international cooperation should be the mantra for sustainable development. And with these words, I end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gohil. As we saw from the presentation and the speech of Ms. Gohil, IT tools that can be used to detect illegal trade, such as AI, drones, sources of data, platforms, and applications, and mainly your initiative and experience with the Operation Shesha and its fruitful results in, based on the cooperation between the various countries participating in this very important initiative. This is shedding the light on the importance of the communication and cooperation between the various agencies and stakeholders and countries in order to counter and fight illicit trade in wildlife and fighting environmental threats. So, speaking about stakeholders, I would like to invite to the podium Mr. John Godson, the Assistant Director of IATA. Mr. John has nearly 30 years of environmental management experience, including 4 years with the United Nations Environment Programme. For the last 11 years, he has worked for the International Air Transport Association, leading a number of sustainability initiatives within the airline sector, including supporting our efforts to combat wildlife trafficking. He's keen to explore how the private and public sectors can work together to reduce wildlife trafficking. So please welcome Mr. John.
Good morning. Carrying on with the illegal wildlife trafficking theme, I want to introduce a project that we've been working on which demonstrates, I think, many of the outcomes from this conference, many of the discussions, things such as data sharing, such as innovative technology, and also collaboration with industry. As the trade association for the over 290 airlines, IATA's main objective is to ensure the safe and sustainable growth of air transport. Last year, 4.3 billion people flew on over 45 million commercial flights, and the sector achieved a growth of 6.5%. This growth brings environmental challenges, and we're working very hard to address climate change. We have some robust and long-term goals. But in recent years, new environmental challenge has emerged, and that's the role that the sector can play in reducing the illegal trafficking of wildlife. As mentioned by the CITES Secretary General in a keynote address, this evil trade is not only endangering endangered species, but it also impacts local communities, it funds international organized crime, and it also indirectly threatens aviation security and safety. IATA's involvement with the fight against wildlife trafficking began back in 2014 when we created a wildlife task force that has now met 18 times. So this has representatives from many of the world's leading airlines, and they give us guidance and support and direct our activities. We participate in 2 international initiatives, one of them led by the royal family in the UK and the other by the US government. Over 60 airlines have signed the Buckingham Palace Declaration. This represents over 35% of global traffic. This is committing the airlines to adopting zero-tolerance policies, raising awareness of trafficking within their networks, adopting and developing reporting protocols. We're also a core member, IATA is a core member of ROUTES, the USAID's Reducing Opportunities from the Transport of Endangered Species Partnership. This is a 5-year project which gives support materials to airlines and to other transport players. It gives training information, it looks at seizure and trend information, and provides guidance material. The ROUTES partnership also encourages public and private dialogue, and the project I will now introduce will be a clear example of this. Airlines were initially reluctant to support coordinated action on wildlife trafficking, seeing this issue as a purely enforcement one, restricted to the concealment of iconic species, rhino, horn, ivory tusks, between Africa and Asia. However, seizure information provided through these partnerships with conservation organizations and engagement with national and enforcement authorities, including Interpol, including WCO, has begun to challenge these perceptions. A recent report on wildlife trafficking in the air transport sector, sourced from publicly available information, looking at seizures of ivory, rhino horn, reptiles, birds, pangolins, marine products and mammals in the period 2009 to 2016, revealed 1,346 seizures. However, through a public information request, it was established that in the same time period, the US had 20,000 seizures, representing 7 seizures a day. It is clear that the exploitation of the air transport sector is much greater than it appears on the surface. The report also confirmed a shift away from carriage in cargo to concealment by passengers in hold and cabin baggage. This now accounts for over 50% of seizures. And also we've seen a change in the global network of routes that are being used, with a widespread use of hub and transit ports in the Middle East and Europe. For the airline sector, seizure data is key to demonstrating relevance, to encourage commitment, and to reinforce good practices. IATA is partnering with the Department of Environmental Affairs in South Africa on a pilot project, Project Vicola, on automated detection of illegal wildlife. Baggage handling systems around the world are handling 7,000 bags a minute. And to minimize aviation security risks, screening now includes the widespread adoption of automated detection. for explosives using machine learning algorithms, as we've heard very similar to the discussions earlier today. Why can't we apply the same technology to illegal wildlife products? At an Interpol Wildlife Crime Working Group meeting last year, and following a little bit of matchmaking from WCO, it was determined that South Africa may be interested in assisting IATA with a pilot project. The Department of Environmental Affairs owns its own X-ray scanners and, unfortunately, has plenty of specimens locked in a secure basement, making them an ideal partner for working on algorithm development. In fact, they caught a passenger in OR Tambo Airport 2 weeks ago with 22 rhino horns in his bag. So yes, they have plenty of samples. We've seen a growing willingness to share aviation security data with enforcement. Bilateral projects and pilot projects are underway. New Zealand is sharing X-ray security images with Australia. The Netherlands are sharing similar images with the US. And this is able to facilitate targeted inspections on arrival. These national initiatives are now being mirrored at an international level. The concept of a joint approach to addressing border and aviation security threats, including the sharing of AVSEC security X-ray images with Customs and Border Control, is now being considered at ICAO, our aviation's UN agency. Airlines and airports have expressed concern about the impact of the emerging trend of customs installing screening equipment at departures, targeting illicit goods. This has the potential to impact facilitation, slowing passenger clearance and delaying flights. Passengers also face the inconvenience of potential multiple screening by customs, agriculture and environmental authorities on arrival, often using the same type of equipment. The sharing of outbound AVSEC images with enforcement, combined with automated detection based on open source architecture, could significantly improve detection rates for a range of illicit goods. The project that we're working on comprises 4 phases. The demonstration plan, which effectively looks at operational and technical restrictions, things such as alarm resolution. The alarm resolution required for aviation security is potentially an order of magnitude higher than would be required for looking for illicit goods and looking for wildlife in particular. We have to look at things such as intellectual property rights, the funding and, most importantly, the procurement model for developing the algorithm, and some of the red flags. We're currently at the stage of building the image library, so we're focusing specifically on rhino horns, because rhino horns represent something which is commonly seized in South Africa, and it is very rarely unworked, so it makes it fairly straightforward in order to be able to take the images of a shape and a characteristic density so that algorithms could be relatively straightforward to develop. We're working on collection of 2,000 of those rhino horn images concealed in bags and mixing that with the 100,000 stream of commerce images so that we can use that information to create the algorithm. Following the development, we will move into operational testing. Further activities beyond the proof of concept look at potentially integrating this into the baggage screening and handling system, application within the within cargo and a cabin-based application, whether we need to have a mobile or even just a temporary solution with text alerts going to enforcement, and alternative types of equipment and different species. It will be a long journey. IATA and Roots have funded the first few phases of this, and we've got a donor interested now in funding the algorithm. The 2 red lines for IATA's involvement in the project are that we must have a technology-neutral solution. Open source architecture is the way forward for in aviation security, and we need to make sure that we follow a similar kind of protocol as WCO in terms of the unified file format discussed yesterday. The other one that's very important is that it must not interfere with aviation security. So in no way can any machine be amended. It would need to be recertified. So if an aviation security, simply we take the outputs from the aviation security scanning equipment. So the duty to detect, seize, prosecute wildlife criminals will always remain with enforcement. But the airline sector can also provide human, and now more importantly, digital intelligence. Although advances in automation and digitization, we have online check-in, automated bag drops, will result in less human interaction with passengers, cargo and shipments, many of the technologies, if embraced by enforcement, could increase the probability of detection, facilitating targeted interdiction. This project aims to demonstrate that automated IWT detection based on algorithms, initially developed to reduce aviation security risks, is technically feasible, that the billions of aviation security images captured every year could have a secondary use, and that public-private cooperation based on the sharing of digital information could significantly reduce criminal exploitation of the air transport network. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Godson. Mr. Godson focused in his presentation about the safe and sustainable growth of flight industry with the challenge of addressing the environmental aspects of it. Also, he highlighted the growth of passenger and their involvement in illicit trade. This led into the utilization of many tools and IT technologies such as automated detection and data exchange, integrated inspections, and target selected inspections. Also, the important project that he also introduced to all of us is the Vicala project and the importance of using the technology, and artificial intelligence and machine learning. Now I would like to introduce you our next speaker. Our next speaker will be Mr. Satya Sahu. He's the Senior Trade Facilitation Specialist at the World Bank Group. Mr. Sahu serves as a Senior Trade Facilitation Specialist, leading a global unit for trade, connectivity, and regional integration. Before joining the World Bank, he served in the headquarters of Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs at the Ministry of Finance at the Government of India. He also had the responsibility of a policy on single window, border controls, enforcement, and other initiatives for the modernization of customs, border management, trade, and logistics. Mr. Sahu was working for the World Customs Organization as well as a senior technical officer in Trade Facilitation Sub-Directorate. He was primarily responsible for the managing of the WCO instruments such as the WCO data model, revised Kyoto Convention, and single window, advanced information under the SAFE framework of standards, formalities, and reporting to the state authorities under the conventions for the international maritime. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Sahu.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, and in my brief presentation, I would like to talk about what the World Bank does in this area of trade facilitation and how it supports various governments in implementing the various measures for enforcement as well as trade facilitation. So let me begin by talking about what the World Bank Group is and what it does. The World Bank Group gets involved in helping countries, which are its members, to support in the reduction of poverty and to raise the prosperity of the bottom 40% of the population. So we take up projects which are lending projects or advisory projects with governments where the bottom line is that it should work towards the reduction of poverty or elimination of poverty and the raise of the standard of living and the prosperity for the bottom 40% of the population. So typically we find that in the area of trade and trade facilitation, when we reduce trade costs, improve the capacity of the country to do trade, that results in the increase in transport and logistics efficiency, and that results in the economic integration of the country with other parts of the world, and particularly in the region. It leads to growth in trade volumes, diversification of trade, and that sustainable trade leads to economic growth, which is contributing towards the elimination of poverty and rise in prosperity. And that's why we are in the business of trade facilitation and promotion of trade. So the unit that I belong to works in different areas and different aspects of trade. A group that deals with trade facilitation. There's a group that deals with logistics and connectivity. There are people who deal with trade policy and SPS-related support. There's a group also that deals with trade finance and other kinds of support. So we have a total package for trade in terms of country looking to growing trade. So in terms of trade facilitation, what you see on the screen is the areas that we work in. We provide support on analytics and diagnostics in terms of what's working and what's not working in a country. We provide technical assistance, and the total portfolio that we have currently is around $7 billion. That is subject to a little bit of revision now. We are working in over 120 countries where active projects have been executed over the past 20 years, and all of those lead to improved performance of the administrations in terms of trade facilitation as well as enforcement. So we have major data project products such as Doing Business and Logistics Performance Index, and we work in partnership firstly with the various institutions and agencies of the government, but also various international organizations such as the World Customs Organization as well as the World Trade Organization. So all in all, the World Bank Group's efforts also are tied up with helping countries to implement the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement through what's called the Trade Facilitation Support Program. So this particular panel is about innovation and the use of latest technology to fight wildlife crime, to fight IPR, to fight the various enforcement challenges that countries face. So one of the things that I would like to put up front is innovation is not equal to the use of latest technology. Innovation involves a process, and it includes the entire process, beginning with the problem identification to generation of new ideas, and from ideation to invention, development and prototyping, field testing and implementation. And for this whole, to bring this whole idea, innovation may involve new technologies such as the ones that you see outside in the booths and the various presentations that you have seen so far. It may be a new clearance process in the business process that you change in terms of how you inspect, where you inspect, how you detect. The one that you saw in the presentation of IATA, where they mention that what is screened in the country of origin could be passed on to the country of destination so that the customs is ready for detection. So that's clearly an innovation. The data bank that we are creating in terms of image, that's another example of innovation. New data sources that are made available. I mean, that there are multiple examples of new data sources that people are going to offer. Some of the booths also outside talk about new data sources that are made available to customs for carrying out innovation. New analytical tools, there are plenty that we spoke about. New collaboration models. My colleague from India, she spoke about CENCOM. It's a collaboration tool offered by the WCO to all customs administrations to share real-time information for enforcement purposes. It could be a new program that you launch, such as the Operation Shesha, again to borrow from the presentation of my colleague from India. Now, innovation in customs enforcement necessarily includes risk management, and you found the dominant theme of many of the presentations in this conference as well as in the exhibitions in the workshop focusing on risk management. Innovation can be radical, it can be incremental, it can be done by small teams, but may also involve the whole organization, and it definitely encompasses the whole process. So let's begin with what is driving innovation today. What we see in the last 10 years is that innovation is being driven by data technologies. And it begins with the sea of data that we now are faced with, confronted with. There's an exponential growth of data, and there are different sources of data that customs can have access to. Firstly, the e-commerce data. E-commerce is growing exponentially the world over. The second is the data coming from social networks. A lot of countries are tapping social networks to generate intelligence, and definitely to tackle wildlife crime, to tackle IPR, for example. Internet of Things, scanners, sensors, RFID, GPS, all of those are potential sources of data. Then we talk about the surveillance technologies, drones, definitely there was a mention of drones, and also screening technologies, of which there are plenty of examples presented by the distinguished speakers, and also in the booths next adjacent to this building. So now I'm talking about data generation, but we need to collate the data, and there are definitely new technologies that are available to collate the data, to make it comprehensible and meaningful, to organize the data in a way that can be exploited. Distributed ledger technologies, which is that there is no single place where the data is stored, it's stored in multiple federated facilities. And an example of a distinguished example of a distributed ledger technology is blockchain, about which you had many presentations. Now, for the first time in the history of mankind, you have the opportunity to deal with all the conflicting challenges of data sharing, security, privacy, untamperability, etc., etc. So we have now the opportunity to get the data from the source, from the place where the goods are packed, by the person who has generated the data. It can go all the way from the country of origin to the country of transit and to the country of destination. It's available to business and governments alike to exploit. Now, there are a number of data integration tools that are available now in terms of how data is collated and shared, business-to-business applications. You have extract, transformation, and load tools. You have APIs. You have A2A, application-to-application integration tools. There are data profiling and data quality tools. All of those can be clubbed into the category of tools that now you have, called data integration tools. And apart from data integration tools, now you have smart ways of sharing. I'm beginning with the WhatsApp that you use every day, to the Dropbox that you might use to share data. There are more advanced tools available, such as inter-organizational workflow applications that allow users to share information from multiple platforms through to, a business process with the business partners. So now these are the different kinds of data collation tools that help you handle the data, massive data that is generated in various applications. Now, it's good to have the data collated and presented, but now you need to exploit the data for intelligence purposes. Now, I don't want to go into the definitional aspects of predictive analytics, AI, machine learning, etc. Those, there are experts available you can go to them. But the fact is that there are more and more reliable and advanced tools available for us to make sense out of the data that we have before us. But at the end of it, even though data may be king, but you still need smart controls. The customs officer, the border officials, they are still the masters who have to make the determination as to what to make out of the intelligence that has been presented by these smart tools, by the churning of all this data. Ultimately, the decision rules that you need to put into the risk management system, the decisions that you need to take in terms of the output of the risk management system, that's all up to the officer. Now, what the World Bank did very recently in a country was to apply machine learning to fraud detection. So now this is supervised learning, and you heard this word supervised learning and unsupervised learning in previous presentations. Basically, when you have an input and an output and you put a label to the data and you run the machine to develop the algorithms, you use what's called supervised learning. But you let the machine to churn the data and develop patterns without attributing any labels to the data, then it is unsupervised learning. So what we did in the World Bank, one of our colleagues who worked in one of the countries to apply machine learning to detect fraud, particularly revenue-related fraud, was to train data with fraud-related labels. you could use the same techniques to apply labels for intellectual property violation, wildlife evasion, wildlife smuggling. All of those things are labels that you put on data and then to train the machine to detect the patterns. The fact was that the developing countries have revenue-related challenges, and our first experiment was related to revenue-related risks. So what we did was to maximize the information contained in the transactional databases, but it's not just the transactional databases. We need to still integrate the customs professional experience in terms of studying the data and labeling the data. And what we did was to handle the data in such a way as to make it ready to apply machine learning. So I just want to highlight the differences between the traditional methods of risk management, and the use of data mining and the use of machine learning. In the traditional level risk management, you use the if-then rules. If this is the country of origin, this is the route, this is the importer, then this could be the risk, that kind of a thing. That is what all countries do in their risk management systems. The rules are established by professionals who are in the risk management unit, and then typically use the variables of the current declaration, which means that the declaration data are the basis for applying the rules. But when you go further to the machine learning area, you use more data and dig more complex associations. And then you still use the reference cases based on expert knowledge. And then you use clustering techniques to identify the variables that are most pertinent. But then you go to the next level, which is the machine learning, and the machine learning uses the whole data set. Now, I'm happy to see some of the booths and some of the presentations outside. They are talking about machine learning more and more. So now this is getting into the mainstream of some of the commercial applications that we see outside available. Now, they deal with the whole data set, which means not just the variables that are presented in the declaration, but also statistical variables, variables from external sources of data, etc. And automated algorithm development with no preset rules. There are no predetermined, preconceived notions about what variables are important and what are not. And the algorithm tells us how to improve the machine learning. And typically, how do we organize an AI machine learning project? These are the steps involved. First of all, you get hold of the original data, get the offline access to the several years of data, and then work with fraud units that understand where the frauds have taken place. And then you develop the model on the ground, you do the quality testing, and for periods that are in the past data, we are still talking about an experimental frame where you deal with the past data, and then you apply the real life test effectiveness of inspection on the past data, and then you deploy it in the live runtime scenario. So that's how the typical AI machine learning project runs. I'm talking about the same project that our colleagues implemented in one of the countries. The basic challenges that we face is that customs data is very, very complex. There are different kinds of variables. The categorical variables and numerical variables. There are over 50 variables that we deal with, and data quality is a very big challenge. And whatever is done to improve data quality will definitely improve the quality of results that we produce in machine learning. And I am reminded of the WCO recommendation on the improvement of data quality. Definitely that members should take a look to improve data quality over a period of time. Now, the WCO data model is one of the ways in which to strengthen data quality. The stronger the implementation, the better the chances are that there will be data quality. Blockchain applications, the blockchain as the source of data can definitely improve data quality because we get data from the origin and from the original source. So dispute data sets, that's another area of challenge. Dispute data sets come from enforcement cases that your enforcement colleagues make, audit observations that your audit people in the PCA, the post-clearance audit make, any detections that are made in the field during the clearance process, all of those are dispute data. And some dispute data could be genuine dispute data, the other types of dispute data could be somewhat problematic. But what we found in our implementation was that dispute data could be not of the same quality or level of granularity. They may not be computerized, they may be in the paper records that are somewhere, and therefore there could be issues there. And lastly, AI cannot beat the collective intelligence. So you have the pure random, which is at a low level of accuracy in terms of detection. And in between you have the machine learning and the AI and the data analytics supported solutions. And nothing can beat the human eye and the collective set of intelligence that customs officers over a period of time have acquired. So machine learning still has a long distance to go before it can beat our colleagues in the customs administration. So what we do is that we work with experts, we work with the original variables, and we collect variables in the process of development of the models themselves, and we apply the machine learning applications. So deployment can potentially be challenging because there's a challenge for integrating the existing systems, the existing if-then rule-based risk management systems with what is produced as an output with the risk management system. But suffice it to say that at the end of the process that my colleagues are working on, there might be a working paper depending on how the results come out, and we will be able to share the working paper with you when it does come out. So now, all that said, new technologies, etc., we still need to go through the standardized process of implementation of risk management system. And that's the standard that is promoted by the WCO Compendium on Risk Management. And that's how we build and run risk managements, no matter how advanced our technologies may get. Now, technology is not a substitute for agency-to-agency cooperation in terms of data sharing, in terms of transparency, in terms of risk-based implementation and post-clearance audit. And partnership with the business side also remains vital through the trusted trader programs and the facilitation of low-risk traders. Despite the growth in technologies, effective risk assessment and selectivity still requires the implementation of the basic processes to have the proper risk management organization, the use of IT, the HR deployment, having the legal framework and the necessary understanding with the countries' mutual assistance agreements, and the procedures to implement risk management effectively. I would like to conclude my presentation with the saying that it takes a whole-of-the-border approach to reduce the time and cost and to achieve better border outcomes for the community. With that, I would like to thank the government of Azerbaijan, the State Customs Committee of Azerbaijan, and the World Customs Organization for having given the opportunity to the World Bank Group to make this presentation. And I'm happy to be in touch with any of you who are interested in working with the World Bank to support modernization of administrations, trade facilitation, and improvement in enforcement. Thank you.
I think the most important thing about Mr. Sahu's presentation is the last phrase that he said. If you need support, you know whom to chase. So he focused in his presentation about the importance of the efforts that the World Bank is putting into institutional reforms, capacity building in order to enable countries in combating and countering illegal trade. As he said, it's all about data, whether from the generation, collection, analysis, and the importance of the data integrity in order to put it into the new innovative solutions to come and to reach to an informed decision made by humans and not machines at the end of the day. So, talking about data and data collection and importance, I would like to introduce to you our next speaker, Mr. Maqbool Lalljee. He's the Director of Tax Solutions Specialist at Bureau van Dijk. Mr. Lalljee worked with Bureau van Dijk on their data and tools for the past 20 years, and their use with tax and customs administration to unearth tax mischief in local jurisdictions and across global boundaries. As a tax professional with 43 years of experience with Her Majesty Revenue and Customs Authority, as Inspector of Tax, he led major tax risk projects and held several senior leadership as his role. He was also as a board member of Her Majesty Revenue and Customs Large Business Strategies Risk Unit, set up and headed the large business high-risk profiling unit. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Lalljee.
Assalamu alaikum, sabah al-khair, good morning ladies and gentlemen. Over the last few days we had speakers pointing out to you how data and data analytics are important in risk management for custom administrations. Including our last speaker, Mr. Sahu, has pointed that out to you. The address by the Secretary General of CITES point out the cost to fauna and flora from exploitation and the revenue loss through money laundering, fraudulent and illicit activities. My approach today is to look at those illicit and fraudulent activities and the accumulation of large funds and flag up the perpetrators through the power of big data, advanced data analytics solutions combining customs data with commercial data and third-party intelligence to make visible the delinquent activities. I shall be showing 3 output models from a neural network model, and these are actual avoidance structures, evasion structures, which I've ran through code in the data, but I've used commercial data only. So I have not had access to customs data at this stage. Okay. So, scale of money laundering is quite, or the scale of fraudulent activity is very big. Money laundering amounts to about $2.8 trillion or 5% of global GDP. About 190 billion of global tax revenue is lost through offshore tax evasion. And estimated untaxed wealth of individuals in tax havens is around 10% of global GDP. So double that, 2.8 trillion. The example I've just put up there is a data architecture to mix my notes up. Okay, yeah. Data architecture to show how we can go about combating such losses. My answer is through big data risk management analytical system. An example of enterprise data architecture, and the way we can do this is to combine the internal data of the customs authority, which is on the left-hand side, all the input from custom authorities, the VAT return data, the transactional data, the duties data, corporate financials, commercial data, and intelligence. And in the middle, you can introduce corporate commercial data with global ownership information to glue up the data from internal sources and link it up with external sources. On my right-hand side, the electronic data from financial institutions, third parties, for example, the intelligence from CITES, and exchange of data information from tax jurisdictions, public disclosures, and open source information. And if you put all this data into a loop, into a data lake, into a Hadoop system, which is quite practical, it is possible now to do that. You can upstream risk by looking at business intelligence, executed by junior analysts, and automated by artificial intelligence. And in downstream, one can look at APIs, analytics, neural networks, text and data mining to reveal the output. So what the next slide shows an example of a neural network of that schematic which I showed on the earlier slide. So in yellow, you can see the input from the tax and customs administration data, In the orange, you can see the input from external information on companies and individuals that are connected to the companies, and the blue is the 3 output model, output data, which you will see now. So first output, I put up the schematic of how the illicit financial flows are done. There are large funds, they are sources of money of criminal activity and tax evasion, and they pass through different layers of entities. The transactions are through unrelated groups, trade transactions, or misinvoicing, related intergroup transfer pricing, mispricing, cash remittances. And these pass through large property businesses, small diversified businesses, construction companies. And usually they are found, the large property businesses in Canada, Japan, UK, US, small diversified businesses in Africa, Middle East, Southeast Asia, construction companies, quite a lot in Africa now. This schematic here, or this example here, is an actual case, actual map of a large fund which I found in the commercial data running some algorithms. And this is quite near to the schematic which I showed on the earlier slide. Again, you see a massive large fund. These are sanctioned individuals who have the large funds. Large funds are in Hong Kong. And the first layer, they have put it through an investment holding company in Virgin Islands, a trust in Guernsey in UK, and then the second layer, you have companies formed which have nominees, a single purpose vehicle for large fund transfers in Virgin Islands, nominees in UK and Hong Kong, management company in Hong Kong, nominees in Virgin Islands, and legal framework, legal companies in Hong Kong, financial banking in Hong Kong. And then there's a hedge fund being formed in the Virgin Islands. And if you follow the line down, you got an asset holding company in Bermuda, again in the nominees in Virgin Islands, training companies in Hong Kong, real estate companies in Japan, training companies in Southeast Asia, training companies in Middle East, construction companies in China and Africa, real estate in Cayman, Canada, US, and real estate in Virgin Islands, through Virgin Islands in the UK. So the illicit fund at the top is channeled through the layers, different layers, and then is cleaned through into legitimate businesses in different countries. So in this output 2 of the model, I'm showing a neural network model of illicit sources of finance. So we can pick non-transparent ownership structures. We can pick high increases in income from profit of businesses year over year. We can look at financial ratios in companies, in the balance sheets, in the profit and loss accounts, cost of sales, and sales ratios of businesses not in line with the industry benchmark. We can look at unclear or unverifiable origin of money, financial transactions with subsidiaries based in tax havens, transactions in goods and services outside the company's normal trading areas, large transactions with fictitious companies, nominee offices related in offshore companies, use of special vehicles for large financial transactions. So all this information is available in the customs and revenue filing information and commercial information. If you mix it up together, you would be able to run these algorithms and look at the various outputs which I've shown today. And detecting this illicit trade fraud becomes quite easy. In the next example, the third output I'm going to show is an actual case of tracking 5 individuals over time. How they have been able to set up corporate structures over time. And this is an actual case And if you look at individual 1 in blue, number 1, key individual 1, so if you track him from 2015 to 2018, in 2015, set up corporate structures in Cayman Island, UK, Ireland. In 2016, British Virgin Island, 2017, United Arab Emirates, 2018, Taiwan. And these are actual individuals who have been tracked over time, and you can see the behavior, how they've been using low-tax jurisdictions and financial centers to set up their structures. So this can be done, this is easily done through data. So if you can look at the big picture now, you can bring data, brings clarity, extensive ownership structures, and helps uncover unrelated, related financial and trade transactions. It allows us to facilitate single view across national government departments. It enhances multi-agency cooperation and global data sharing, and allows us to work and target money laundering, corruption, tax evasion, working with financial institutions, the police, the Interpol, national bureaus, and various other regulatory agencies. So we can bring all the agencies' works together into linking up with data and developing a sensible architecture for customs to work with. The final takeaway here is that big data and advanced analytics play an important role. Cutting-edge technology and sophisticated algorithms produce powerful, efficient neural networks and reveal income from fraudulent and illicit activities. Investments into global company data and a 21st century IT infrastructure will reduce considerable financial losses to the Revenue and Customs Administration. This should be an informed investment decision. What I'm showing now is not science fiction. It is reality. It is possible now to combine our resources and to develop systems to track through structured, unstructured data and intelligence from different systems and the frontline activities which are being carried out by a lot of the customs administrations. So it is something possible, and it is quite easy to do nowadays in the 21st century. Thank you very much.
So I think the most important thing that we get from your presentation is just follow the money. So when you follow the money, you will identify illegal, you will identify, let's say, suspicious transactions that are related to illegal trade activities, and that will be through the utilization of the advanced technology and tools that are now available. It's not, as you mentioned, it's not science fiction anymore. It's a reality, and it's available, and we've seen it in the past years, and it's really well demonstrated in this conference through data mining, advanced technology, AI, machine learning, Internet of Things, blockchain, and so on. Easily now, all transactions can be traced. So I would like to thank all my esteemed speakers for their presentations, and I would like to open the floor for just 2 or 3 questions maximum. If anybody has a question, please. No one? Okay, I'll ask 2 questions, let's say, for my colleagues, and it will be, hopefully it will be very quick. We don't want to keep people late here. So I'll ask Mr. Maqbool, how feasible it is to use big data with advanced analytics to unearth all forms of fraudulent and illicit cross-border trading activities?
Yeah. In the 21st century, we are data rich and we are intelligence rich. It is quite different to what we were 20 years ago, we had data, we had poor data, and we had poor infrastructure, IT structure. With the 21st century, the investments that are being made now across customs and tax jurisdictions, I think it is very easy, as I said earlier, to enable us to detect the illicit trading, fraud, and the buildup of funds. So data is there for us to do.
Thank you very much. Mr. John, I have a question for you. How can enforcement support airline wildlife trafficking initiatives, especially with the importance of cooperation between the various agencies?
Yeah, I think outreach and coordination between airline airport sector and enforcement is very important. I know that from the Indian experience it's already started, so that there are discussions at an airport level. This gives information on seizures, trends, routes, methods of concealment, things for aviation to look out for. But also there are seizures and prosecutions which have an aviation security angle to them. So the more dialogue we've entered into with enforcement, we've begun to realize that there are issues associated with insider threat, with bag tags that have been removed, with bags and consignments that have avoided screening. And that information needs to be passed back from enforcement to aviation security so that we can look at these vulnerabilities and try and plug the gaps, try and mitigate these risks.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, as the keywords are repeated in every single questions, answers, discussions, is the more important thing is cooperation, collaboration between the various stakeholders, not only from the public sectors, also by NGOs, public, private sector, to create this dialogue. And this is why we are all here, representing the various agencies and stakeholders involved in facilitating and controlling trade across the border. Would like to thank you again, and thank you for your time. So thank you also for the WCO team and for Azerbaijan. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mazen, and all the speakers for this session. So I will invite all of you to Tourism Board in order to get information about City Tour, and you can get your gifts from Tourism Board during the coffee break. And now I invite all the delegates for the refreshment and coffee break sponsored by Microsoft. See you later. Thank you.